Welcome to the Restoration Activation Project video commentary series. Hi, Mary Ann here, and I'm glad to be with you. It's been a while. Hope you haven't given up on me. I've been working to put all of the finishing touches on the book and working on a couple of video courses while also trying to do this work, myself work, and all these spinning plates. So thank you for bearing with me. And the book, as well as at least one, maybe two of the video courses, should be released in the first quarter of the upcoming year. So that's good news. And I'll keep you posted as things progress. But let's dive right into today's commentary. And the seemingly, or maybe not to some of you, but to some of you, the title of the commentary may have been a little bit confusing or perhaps intriguing. But all of these things will come together during the course of what I'm going to put forth today. And I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about the nature of the reality that we're co-creating through. And the reality that we're currently co-creating through is basically an artificial overlay or segment, or however you want to view that, of our true original reality. And it comprises multiple components, including components within ourselves. At the very basic level, we've been conditioned to have all of these distortions, these beliefs about what we are, what reality is, and what it's really for, and why we're really here, and all of that. There are external indications as well. Reincarnation is one of the aspects of the external artificial reality, for those of you who understand that. Many of you don't abide by that, and that's fine. But reincarnation is one of the extensions, artificial extensions of this reality, the simulation of our reality, or the artificial overlay, however you view that. Some other signs, and some of you don't agree with this either, and that's fine too, but one of the other indications or signs of the artificial or extensions of the artificial reality that we're living in is the chakra overlay. That's not was not a part of the original human mind-body complex. We comprise, and still do, 3 energy centers. Some refer to them as our 3 different brains, but 3 energy centers: the mind center, the heart center, and the intuitive creative center in the stomach and abdominal area. Generally speaking, they're interconnected, interdependent when we use all of them, and there's an art to doing that, and that's a key part of the self-mastery process, is learning how to work with and align and unify those energy systems and their emanations in the process of co-creation. It's a key part of conscious co-creation as opposed to unconscious or subconscious co-creation. But anyway, there's all these different aspects and extensions and signposts of our the simulated aspect of our reality through which we have been conditioned and engineered and genetically modified to co-create within. Just this layer, I think you could think of it as a layer that has been superimposed upon our real reality. And I'll be getting more into how that all came to be. But in terms of reincarnation, well, even before I get into that, I know a number of you yourselves, and I think we've probably all been through at least a phase of this, either prior to or since we've embarked upon a conscious journey of ascension and self-mastery. But the wishing you were anywhere but here. And I still see a lot of that. People who say that they don't belong here, that they should have never been here, that they had no say so in whether or not they came here, and that they, totally reject this reality as it is and live through the energy of wanting to escape it. Now, some of us do that in different ways. Maybe not so in such a conscious fashion, but a lot of people on this journey are using various tools, more subtle means of escapism. Meditation is just one of those. Spending the bulk of their available time to do this work being glued to videos, interviews, reading books, and doing all of those things is good and well in terms of helping to continually expand our levels of awareness and knowledge. That's good. But when they're done in lieu of actually doing, taking other self-mastery steps and doing other work, then that's a form of escapism. It ends up being an ego placating tool. Instead of working to minimize ego and become master of ego, it ends up feeding it when it's done out of balance like that, or done as a form of escapism. And so there are a number of reasons people do wish to escape, and they're based primarily on, if you're on this journey, it has primarily to do with misunderstandings or lack of awareness or lack of knowledge of what we really are, understandings of how things really work, the differences between progressive and regressive consciousness, a true embodiment of that, and all of the perpetual balancing process, understanding that, consciousness constantly seeking to maintain balance between its regressive and progressive qualities, how that impacts you, your life, our reality, and all of the expressions within it. The principles of creation, the code of conduct, understanding some of the basic principles that underlie those who sincerely engage in this process. There are principles related to that as well. But our misunderstandings, our sense or feeling a need to escape is based on distortions. They stem from the distortions that we carry, the beliefs that limit our ability and not even at the intellectual level. We can see and understand intellectually, apperceive, all of these things I was just mentioning. But that's not the same as actually living in accordance with them, embodying them, and co-creating with that knowledge and those understandings. Intellectual knowledge does not equate to embodiment and application of. It's just knowledge if you're not applying it. Applied knowledge is wisdom. Knowledge in itself becomes just an ego thing. It's only when we start applying this knowledge that we truly start making significant progress in our self-mastery efforts along the way. So, distortions. Distortions are the primary cause of our misunderstandings because they create energetic bottlenecks and blockages that prevent the inflow and the fullest embodiment of core self, soul, consciousness, higher level awareness and consciousness and co-creational capacities and understandings. They limit them from being able to flow more freely through us and extend into our co-creations in this reality. Distortions, all of the distortions in our reality, the wars, the all of the genocides that we've been witness to and those that we haven't, the abhorrent degree of hunger and starvation that goes on in this world. People who are so downtrodden that they're completely helpless. They're unable to care for themselves and they just die off. But all of the and war, all of that. They're all direct reflections. Those external distortions are all reflections, manifest expressions of the distortions we carry within us. Because we are constantly co-creating. There's a lot of, to say the least, misunderstandings in the New Age community about manifestation and co-creation. Some limit it to going through various rituals. And when certain steps are taken, people end up participating in dark magic, regressive rituals without even knowing that that's what they're doing in terms of trying to manifest perhaps a partner or a new job, more money, a different car, a new place to live, whatever. And they limit it to those activities without realizing that in every moment, every thought, particularly persistent thoughts, and the emotions that they evoke, and the same emotions reinforcing those thoughts, and we ultimately take actions. We engage in behaviors and actions that bring those thoughts and feelings into manifest reality. So we're constantly co-creating. And the aggregate of humanity at this stage of the game, at this point in the evolution cycle, are co-creating through distortions. Now, if distortions are beliefs, what exactly are beliefs? Where do our beliefs come from? Well, they come in any number of ways. A number of them are the result of traumatic experiences that we've been through, beliefs that we took on about ourselves or about reality that we felt we needed to do, to shift into in order to feel safer, to survive, self-survival in this reality. Most of them during the time when we were very young, or perhaps that we brought into this reality from other versions of ourselves, other incarnations. But as a result of trauma, that we've taken on these different beliefs, and as a result, well, first let's talk about some other way beliefs get taken on. We also are extremely indoctrinated. We get served up from the minute we're born. We're being served up with the beliefs of others. Our parents, our caregivers, our guardians, relatives, teachers, religious figures if we're involved in a particular religion, the rabbi, the priest, the minister, the imam, whomever, whatever, the monk. So we get those beliefs. We can take on beliefs that way. And beliefs are tricky things. They're kind of hard they're easy to nail down, but they're not. They're not always. But beliefs, I'll talk a little bit in a linear fashion, but it's not a linear thing. But I'll speak in linear terms for a moment. But our beliefs lead us to think and feel and act in certain ways. And over the course of time, our behaviors, our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, we become attached to them. Initially, we've become attached initially because they made us somehow feel better about, just to feel better about ourselves, to feel safer somehow. But as we start growing and maturing, getting older, we're not taught to understand that we are carrying beliefs and that some of these beliefs no longer serve us if they ever did. They may have served us at one point, especially in the case of extreme trauma and so forth. But as we grow and progress, we're not taught that we need to review them and look at them and maybe get rid of some of them because they're hindering us now. Some of our attachments, we become attached to beliefs, and as a result, we become attached to certain behaviors, and sometimes addicted, not only to behaviors, but external things that make us feel better about ourselves, or that enable us to experience certain feelings or thoughts that we think make us, that we want to experience for whatever reason. Because somehow we think they make us feel better about ourselves. They perhaps, again, make us feel safer, like doing certain things, working at a certain job. That becomes a habit because we're making a certain amount of money. We're in a situation, even if we know that that institution is a very regressive dominant institution, we're in the habit of working there because we've become accustomed to the lifestyle it affords us. And neither situation For example, those situations may be directly undermining your self-mastery progress because you're not viewing them from the perspective of higher order knowledge, excuse me, and understanding of how things really work. But we've sort of rabbit holed. It's like, okay, I have to make a living. And yes, we all do. In this reality, we have to have some means, some source of income. Of course we do. But part of this journey is looking at every area of our lives and everything that we're doing in order to see where we have, just as one facet of this, where we're attached, in what ways we're attached, what behaviors and thoughts and beliefs we're attached to. So all of these things are interconnected. And what I was talking about now, you know, speaking in a linear progression of what unfolds from the foundation of belief, well, it can work in reverse too. The more we engage in these belief-driven behaviors for purposes of experiencing something that makes us feel better or safer or better about ourselves, generally speaking, or gives us some sort of physical pleasure, the more we engage in those, the more deeply entrenched our beliefs become. Further, are causing denser energetic bottlenecks and blockages. It's circular. And the more we ignore these our distortions, the less likely we are to make significant progress on our journeys. So, and I'm going to shut down my email here so I don't hear that little signal. Ew. But at the very root of the co-creative process, of course, if you understand the principles of creation, you could say thought. Thought initiates the process. But again, it's not just linear. It's not thought, emotion, action, behavior. It's a circular process. Because we can have an emotion that leads us to have certain thoughts. And then having those thoughts, we get on a train of thought that feeds into those emotions even more, and they keep fueling each other, which also directly impacts the behaviors, the actions we take, you know, the things we say and do. So everything's interconnected and interdependent. Over the course of time, we get into routines of thought. Thoughts can even become what is known as a thought form, an entity-like energy or force that greatly influences everything that we do. So this is why it's really important to become a master of your thoughts and master of your emotions. These are two key areas of self-mastery because they are the baseline elements of the co-creational process. And what are beliefs? Beliefs are thoughts. They are perhaps a series of thoughts if you're adhering to a specific ideology or concept, might comprise multiple thoughts. But our beliefs, they're thoughts that have unfolded in all these different ways. We've become emotionally attached to, we're energetically attached to them now, the beliefs that we carry. The two go hand in hand. And the behaviors that unfold therefrom. Attachment, attachment, attachment. Now, getting back to the reincarnation process, that's just one extension, one aspect of the simulation, this strip of reality, a simulated strip of our original reality or overlay of our reality, however you want to view that. But the reincarnation process. And how that came to be. And this is just one example. This you could also relate this, what I'm about to put forth for your consideration, to the chakra implants. And again, I'm neither telling you to use or not use your chakras, or to get rid of them or keep them. That's entirely up to you. But the energy centers, the chakras came into being, from my understanding, as means, even those of you that think that you're good with them and you work with them and they work for you, and you're clear on the fact that you're sure that they're really working for you. And oftentimes I've worked with people who end up they don't know how the chakras are being used to work against them by external forces. And there are means that you can protect yourself and continue using and working with the chakras if you like. But the purpose, we have these three energy centers. And I would think anybody that's been involved in any, if you're on a journey of awakening, or you've upgraded to self-mastery ascension work, that these three energy centers are there. These three brains, they exist. They're there. The chakras, these are within us. They flow through us, within us, around us. The chakras are attached. They are externally attached to the energy field. And they're not just, they're energy vortices that serve as portals. So, why would we need them? And there's multiple, some, a minimum of 7, some believe as many as 12. But they provide access to our energy centers. Multiple means of access, multiple portals of access. So, and the energy it's not just about bringing energy in, it's about extraction of energy. It's a two-way portal. So, just contemplate that. But the reincarnation system is the focus here. And how did that come into be? How did that come into play? I speak often about human self-irresponsibility in all of this. Humans have had a hand and are the primary creators of this reality, all the conditions of this reality. And that's taking into account all of the manipulation that's gone on. the external, the system of control at 3D interdimensional levels. The non-human ruling class use us to create the conditions in this reality. We have created this overlay. Now, a lot of you won't like hearing that, but let me continue before you throw out the baby with the bathwater. And it relates directly to attachment. Early on in the human, well, who can say? Let me step back. At some point in the initial, everything's happening simultaneously, but again, I'll speak in linear terms because it's pretty tricky to speak in nonlinear terms in terms of explaining some of this. So I'll stick with linear. So at some point in the initial cycle, and I put forth that it was at some point even in the initial evolution, initial consciousness evolution cycle, humans who were gifted with these remarkable abilities to co-create the conditions of reality using not artificial technology in the sense that people see technology today, but consciousness sourced, vital energy potential sourced, heart center, mind center, intuitive, creative center capacities such as telekinesis, telepathy. We didn't speak. There was no verbal thought. The mind center was at its peak performance level without thought. I know that's hard to imagine, but without labeling anything. This was all done through impressions and experiential, without language. Simply experiencing what was. Co-creating without thought. However that worked, it's not to say that there wasn't some form of consideration of what they chose to co-create, but it wasn't done in terms of language. But the human project, if you will, was flowing beautifully. The progression, the consciousness progression of all humans was expanding and growing. The whole of consciousness, human consciousness, growing and expanding. Well, at some point, and this had to be the case, first of all, back up a little bit. Other races and civilizations, in addition to the ones we were already cohabitating this planet with, but off-planet races and civilizations became very interested in what humans were accomplishing. And came and participated, and they learned from us, and some of them moved on to other realities. They advanced they raised their density levels, their level of awareness, changing their energetic signatures, and were able to progress to higher densities, either a completely different one or incrementally within our multidimensional, multi-density reality. We can't perceive them. but they moved on. They used this and used it, the knowledge that they gained, progressively. They use it to progress their collective consciousness as well as their individual consciousness, and moved on, while other beings came here didn't. They were already out of balance to some extent, and that's a natural, based on the principles of creation, that's a natural, inevitable response to extremely progressive energies that are being put forth. But remember, humans know one expression of consciousness can be either 100% progressive or regressive quality of consciousness. It can be progressive dominant or regressive dominant. But no one being can be 100% one or the other of either of those qualities. Or co-creation can't unfold. To be 100% regressive or 100% progressive or regressive quality of consciousness means to not exist. We are a part of the whole. We become, and it's not we, this energy is reabsorbed into the whole of unexpressed consciousness. It's no longer individuated. So, the humans themselves contain or comprise some regressive qualities, though they were extremely progressive consciousness dominant. So there's that factor. So there's some level of attraction, if you will. Attracting complementary regressive forces. And because regressive consciousness is what it is, there was great interest, because regressive consciousness seeks to control. So any expression or co-creation that's going on that makes them feel like they don't have control over the unfoldment of consciousness makes them nervous, frightens them. They don't like it. The principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without, and vice versa. The human body is a great expression of that. The way our immune system works, one aspect of it, the way this body protects itself from bacteria, for example. When certain foreign bodies, bacteria, enter the body, the mind-body complex goes immediately into action to isolate and or kill off that intruding element. So, principles of creation, that's principle of correspondence. That's just another example of that. So regressive forces, it was inevitable that regressive dominant forces would be drawn to us in our reality. That's because that's just the way things work. And the more progressive dominant, the more interested the regressive dominant beings and forces and entities will be interested and concerned about, so to speak. So this was a natural part of conscious evolution and these evolution cycles and their unfoldment. This is just the way it works. To be upset about that or disturbed by that indicates, or could be an indicator of your lack of understanding. To reject what is a misunderstanding, or it means that regressive energies, distortions, are keeping you from seeing what you need to see. So another reason, distortions, it's so vital to clear distortions, to get rid of these belief attachments, these thought, emotion, behavioral attachments, material object attachments, physicality attachments. Well, getting back to hypothetical history, regressive dominant beings came and saw, and they were threatened by this. And so they have to find an opening, that hook, the tag, through which to start changing things the way they wanted to change them, to start controlling what was going on here so that they no longer felt threatened by what was going on. And all of the other things that have flowed from that, to the point of actually using us as a food source, as well as using our energies in other regressive ways, trading them, selling off of, some people, I think it was Robert Monroe, coined the term loosh, our vital energies and so forth, as well as our life force energies, but our source level energies, vital energy and potential. That's the top of the line. That which contains and is expressed through our energetic level DNA coding, in contrast to the biological DNA expression of that. So, but they had to find a tag, means of getting human consent to start putting into play some of their plans and schemes to take control of this reality and humans and human consciousness and human energies. That's really what they want control of. They just use material reality and resources, control of those things, to extract the energetic levels. Things like the money system, the indoctrination, education system, academia, all of those, the healthcare system, all of those institutions in society, government, as those are just the material expressions and tools to accomplish their ultimate goals. The siphoning, the feeding and siphoning, selling of human energies. They understand the principles of creation. They work from a whole different perspective. Higher density perspectives and perceptions, therefore, of what's going on here, how things really work. This is how they've been able to so manipulate us. But they had to have a hook to start, because they also were regressed to the point, and you've all seen examples of this in your own life, perhaps if you've been interfered with, aliens, other entities, regressive dominant entities, non-human, aliens, demon-like entities, and that they use the same kinds of tactics over and over and over again, as long as they work. And once you're onto their game, they don't work anymore. They are neither creative nor true co-creators of reality like humans. So they had to find ways to get us to co-create the reality that they envisioned, where they're in control of the way reality unfolds here, to control humans, to enslave them. But the tag. So what was one of the, perhaps you could relate this to the Catholic reference of original sin. Something to think about. So what would that original sin have been? The original human sin been? And I put forth that certainly one aspect that was self-irresponsible, untrue, that went against why they were really here, what they were designed to do, their mission in this project, the human project. That got put aside because they became immersed in this remarkable reality, what they were co-creating, enthralled by it, attached to it, and became ego. Yes, we came with an ego that wasn't so distorted as it is now, but identified with and attached to the mind-body complex through which these co-creations were unfolding, the material manifestations of their co-creations. So, ego identified with and attached to the mind-body complex and this reality. And so, and I'm not saying every human, but some humans, this is the way this process works. Peaks, valleys, cycles, ebbs, flows. So there began the fall, the so-called, again, a biblical reference, the fall of humanity. And I'm oversimplifying all this, and I know it, so bear with me on that. I cannot possibly get into all of the nuances and aspects. First of all, I don't know them, but even those that I am aware of. But I'm still focusing on reincarnation. And so how easy along the way, the more humans reveled in, became attached to, and identified with this co-creative instrument, the mind-body complex, and the amazing things they were able to achieve, the more immersed they became in this reality, attached to, identified with. And so how difficult would it have been for some of these regressive races and beings, whether expressed as various alien forms or, different types of entities. What we experience now, the different races and civilizations that are basically pulling the puppet strings now aren't the same ones that were initially. I mean, things have changed and evolved over the course of time. It has not been static over these eons through multiple evolution cycles, any more than we here, as above, so below, keep the same leaders interminably, changing. Everything in consciousness is in a constant state of flux. Now, granted, some of these races could have been in power for untold millennia before things, shifted and changes. I don't know that, but I do know that things have changed because even our own system of control. in the 3D, from the 3D perspective. The different methods of social engineering, the different technologies, all of this has been shifting on an ongoing basis. They're constantly making course adjustments to accommodate, because they're not creating in a vacuum. And I say creating, they're not doing these things in a vacuum, or humans doing them for them. They do all the planning, but they're not doing that in a vacuum, and they know, and they have to constantly be aware of a multitude of different factors. So they're constantly making adjustments. We've seen that. If you've been on this planet any length of time, you can look back and see the different types of programs, or the extent to which the program's being pushed or not pushed. It finally falls by the wayside and they change the game a little bit. You can see it. It's no different in the different dimensions. Changes. But anyway, how difficult would it have been at some point for the notion, because they have to have our consent, because we're the creators of it. You and I co-create the conditions. They've been manipulating it because human consciousness is so regressed has been so regressed over the course of time. But we were going to be the co-creators of even the reincarnation system. They designed it, we put it and brought it into manifestation. Why? Because instead of going through one cycle, however long a cycle may have been, with the original or earlier versions, expressions of the mind-body complex, significantly longer lifespans than you and I have. That's been continually being regressed over the course of time, through external and, genetic and psychological, engineering manipulation, social engineering. But without knowing how long lifespans were, but humans wanted to come back. They were so attached to and enthralled with what they were able to do in this reality, they became deeply attached to it, wanted to come back, even beyond a lifespan. And the more attached they became, the more they wanted to be coming back. So we co-created the whole, in my understanding, in my hypothesis, this whole reincarnation process. We are not separate and apart from it. They could not, according to the principles of creation, have come in and they're not even true co-creators. That's why they couldn't have done it. They can tweak and manipulate. They can access energy centers to manipulate. They can use shock and awe events to mess with us. This is because they're really, really good. They really know the human psyche, human psychology, the way it all works. I mean, heck, they contributed by us consenting. And you say, well, I didn't consent to this. Me personally, this individuated consciousness. Well, how do you know that? If you even believe, if you accept the premise, it's clear to you, you have a deep inner knowing that the reincarnation technology exists, then how do you know you weren't one of the original humans, another version of yourself on another timeline that didn't say, hells yeah, I want to be a part of that. Count me in. How do you know that? So to be here now and say that you had no part of it, you never did, you never would, is that being radically honest with yourself? Of the possibility, a distinct possibility, that you helped co-create it in its origins. Now, getting back to those who, there's a lot of talk about how to, well, how do we escape the reincarnation cycle when this mind-body complex does stop functioning and we are ready to move on? You know that you don't want to be here. So how do we move on? And there's a number of different techniques put forth. Some people talking about don't go to the light. Some people speaking of turning immediately inward to the center, the core consciousness of the planet, and any number of different things. But if you're planning that now from a place of fear, dread, rejection of what is in this reality, judging it despite all of its abominations as being wrong, or it shouldn't be, if you're coming at this from a place of escapism, then you will be diminishing your capacities to move beyond it when the time comes. Because you're working from distortions, beliefs, not the place of understanding how these processes work, moving through them and moving and co-creating within this reality from a place of intention, but without attachment to the outcome. To judge this reality is doing just that. You're judging it. To say, I can't bear to be here. I've got to move on. I want no part of it. This is awful. And I don't know if too many people going through this process that would disagree with you, that the conditions are extremely regressive and extremely difficult for those of us, especially those of us on this journey, to be moving through. So it's not that, but to see that as bad or wrong, to see these conditions as somehow bad or wrong, it's based in a belief or misunderstanding, conditioned belief of good and bad, right or wrong. It's a lack of understanding or ignoring understandings of how reality works, how progressive co-creation and consciousness work, and regressive consciousness and co-creation work, and that they are complementary. They're not opposites. We have been entrained to see them as polar opposites, but they're varying degrees of the whole of consciousness with both of these qualities. It's the same energy, if you will. And to not understand that means that it's what leads us to rejecting a situation or person or this reality. And again, that's not to say that we approve of it. But I'm talking about unconditional acceptance, real love, based in true understandings of the higher order workings of our reality and ourselves. A great example of attachment after the mind-body complex starts functioning, after death, if you will. Death, I'm going to say the word, death, death, death. It's not death of you. It's the the mind-body complex is no longer functioning for whatever reason. Age, you get shot, whatever. Whatever. Disease. But a prime example of attachment to this reality that perhaps many of you, many others, even people that are not on this path, have borne witness to, is the presence, actually being able to see discarnate spirits. These ghosts and spirits, whatever you call them, we are able to see them. They still hang around. Perhaps maybe in fourth density as well. That's where they probably reside. But some of us are able to perceive fourth density dimension, so we're able to see them. But these are expressions of individuated consciousness that were so deeply attached, ego-identified with the mind-body complex and or this reality, likely both, that they're trapped. Because think about it. What do you hear? The ghosts, the spirits, these discarnate spirits are, sometimes they're angry, or people hear and see them sobbing. They're still attached to the experience of the mind-body complex, the experience that they underwent, this reality itself, that they're held back. They have been unable to move wherever they're intended to move afterwards, in the afterlife, beyond this life. They perfectly express the attachment, what I'm speaking to in regards to attachment. And the more I put forth that the more visible they are to the more people, the more attached they still are, or were in this lifetime, didn't work through, didn't clear, didn't free themselves of beliefs. And I'm talking about every kind of belief, not just regressive beliefs, but beliefs in anything. We have to, we need at this point in our regressiveness, the regressive state of the mind-body complex, such as it is, some baseline framework, a context, at least when we're starting this process, the self-mastery ascension process, some framework through which to work through. But this is why I stress not holding on to any of these things. Yes, the principles of creation, the code of conduct, understandings of what you really are, individuated, sovereign consciousness functioning through a mind-body complex, those are truths, not beliefs. Even if we don't know exactly how it works, these are things that we know. And I can assure you that we still don't have any real sense of how things really work, but a framework. And we don't lock into our perspective and perceptions and how it might look, but just as a framework that we don't become identified with or attached to. Now, I would say the one identification and attachment that's probably not harmful, that's allowed early on in this process, is attachment to and identification with your energetic, the soul core self aspect of you as functioning through an instrument. That's okay. Just don't be attached to how how you think it looks or works, but just know that. And know that you are energy sourced, and that this body is an ever-changing expression, albeit low vibrational, very dense now, but it's energetic. And that it's imbued, and what animates it is soul and core self, divine consciousness. Those are very basic, provide a very basic framework through which to function. As long as we don't become attached to exactly how we think it all works. That's not the same as creating distortions within ourselves unless we become ego identified in any way and ego attached to our understandings, because we can create new attachments, new identifications and attachments even in our understandings. And I've been there too, where I became, and that's why it was took a little time for me to disentangle myself from the New Age, the distorted beliefs, the distorted teachings that I was exposed to, indoctrinated into when I was involved with that. Because I became identified with and attached to those distorted teachings, creating distortions in myself, making it harder to disentangle. So, if indeed it is in it's the will, divine will, core self, soul will, for soul to move beyond this reality after the fact, then that will be. And you will know, because if your understanding is that this reincarnation technology exists, and you choose not to keep participating in it, you're doing your clearing work, you're healing these aspects of yourself, which is necessary, because you could view the distortions as weights, blocks, weights, blinders, because they are, that will keep you from being able to accomplish what you want to accomplish, both here and beyond. From one or between the different incarnations and versions of ourselves, when soul evolution growth has occurred, increased awareness of what things really are, of how, more awareness and understanding of the totality of objective truth, we carry that gets shared between all the versions of ourselves. On the other hand, so do the uncleared, unhealed distortions within us. That carries between, impacts all the versions of ourselves as well. And to reject or to say anything, including this distorted, regressive, dominant, crazy reality, is bad, wrong, you shouldn't be here, that twists your perspective, turns it into your desire to want to not participate, choose to no longer participate in that cycle. It twists it into an escape. You're seeking escape. You're trying to get away from. That's regressive consciousness. And you undermine your very ability to be able to do that when the time comes. It will just increase the likelihood that you won't be able to accomplish this. If you're leaving from a place of fear, it's regressive. You're undermining your own chances. Now, taking that into consideration, that it's there and choosing, it's like, okay, at this point on my journey, to the best of my understanding of how things are, my own gauging of things, does it make sense for me to come back and keep working in this way or not? In terms of the progression of not only my own consciousness, but the whole of consciousness. Will it help progress that? Or will it limit my capacity to contribute in that way? And only you can determine that. And you're not going to be able to determine that with any lucidity if you're bogged down by all these distortions. In other words, like it or not, we can't say we want to do this or that if we're not doing the work that enables it. I mean, we can, but we're not going to get very far. You can say it all you want, but we have to back that up. We have to back up intentions with the actions that substantiate them, that make them manifest. And in this reality, that means we have to take actions. We have to clean up, clear out, get rid of the weights that are holding us here, not only holding us back here in terms of progressive creation, but that will prevent us, could well prevent us from being able to, to progress enough to be able to move elsewhere. So rather than taking the stance of, I want to get away from, immerse yourself more. Start looking at things from the perspective of, what do I choose to move toward? Escape from is regressive. Move toward is progressive consciousness. And again, I'll qualify that with, I am not saying that it's always inappropriate to want to escape something. If someone's abusing you, get the heck away from them. Because that is not progressive consciousness. And even that wouldn't be 100% true, because I don't know everybody's unique journey. In some cases, that might not be true, but in the majority of cases, if you're being horribly, verbally, psychologically, emotionally, certainly physically or sexually abused, then to not escape that is more likely than not regressive consciousness. So walking away from, turning away from, isn't always regressive consciousness. But if you see things as, like I said, even if you are in an abusive relationship, to want to leave it from a place of fear, from the energy of fear, will hinder your ability to do so in the most lucid, wise manner. It could well inhibit your ability to see ways to move on that might cause further suffering or harm for yourself. I hope that makes sense. But even if you're in that type of situation, accept it. You're there. It's not about daydreaming your way out of it. You'll have to take steps. But envisioning what you're moving toward. What do I intend to begin co-creating for myself? I don't condemn this, but I choose something drastically different now. And I choose to proceed with that confidently. This is what it is right now. And I will clear and I will do what I need to do to contend with it as long as I need to be here until I can step out and toward what I consciously choose. And again, the co-creation process, a key, if not the fundamental part of co-creation, that process is alignment. Our thoughts, the two levels of thoughts, beliefs, not just the conscious level, but the subconscious, which is reflected through our emotions and the things that we actually do. That's how we know what we're really thinking, what we, where we really are, what our beliefs really are. We might say we don't believe something at the conscious level. Well, the subconscious, if that's true or not true, the subconscious will reflect that because the subconscious drives our actions and behaviors. And unless until we're awake and aware of our emotions, emotion mastery, thought mastery, then all of those subconscious, the things we aren't aware of, the distortions that we haven't brought to the surface, pulled out by the roots, they're still there and driving our thoughts and emotions and behaviors. They have to be aligned. You can't fool energy, the mind-body complex. You can't just say or think something in and of itself. Those are good places to start. But until we do some cleaning house, our creational energies won't be in alignment. They have to be aligned. So, I know it's sort of an interesting path today. I hope there's information that you can take away that will be of benefit. Your comments, please share your comments and questions below. What you know and even your questions can be very enlightening to others, very supportive of others on their journey. So I invite you to start leaving your comments and questions. I hear from you, a number of you, on my website in different means, but share them below for others to see. I learned so much myself that way, and it's deeply appreciated, and others deeply appreciate it too. So I invite you to do that. And if you found this video helpful, I hope you'll share it with your friends. And keep in mind that if you need help with some of this, I'm still currently offering the complimentary, free 1 hour sessions. You have nothing to lose and potentially a lot to gain if you're feeling stuck or need help addressing this. I'm still offering that. I'm not sure how long I will be. So, and it doesn't mean that we have to do it right away. You might want to schedule it for a little bit down the road, but take advantage of that. Stepping out. You say you want to, those of you who are feeling alone or isolated, connect with someone who is also on this journey. Hello. It doesn't even have to be about a specific topic, but if that's what you choose, whatever it is, you will walk away with a specific next step plan of action that will help support you in your efforts on this journey. So please consider that. And if you haven't subscribed already, I invite you to do so. And in the meantime, and it won't be long, I'm probably going to be releasing several videos in pretty close succession. But Until next time, take care, and I wish you all the best on your journey. Bye for now.